Okay. Und hörst du mich schon? Ja. All right, check, check, sound check. Can everyone hear me? Yes? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome to the OMR Masterclass. It's quite early in the morning, so I hope everyone is fit. I hope the energy level is still high. Not too many drinks last night, hopefully. And yeah, very excited to welcome you all. And first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is AJ, Chief Sales Officer at IBM iX. And I have two wonderful colleagues here with me. Marina, would you like to start with a little introduction from your side?
Thank you, AJ. Check, check. Can you hear me? Perfect. I'm Marina. Nice to meet you. I have the pleasure to tell you the story of marketing transformation and digital transformation of Metro. Couple words about myself. I'm a digital optimist. I see myself at the intersection between technology, business, and customer, and I'm very happy and proud to be here today with my colleague.
Yeah, hi everyone, Inge Scheibel. I'm a principal solution consultant at IBM iX. I have been focusing the last 3 years very much on customer data platforms, on MarTech projects similar to this one, and have a background like in all sorts of projects in digital, CMS, CRM, email, whatever you can imagine basically in the past, but as I said, the last few years focusing mainly on MarTech and CDP.
Perfect. Thank you both for being here. And yeah, so looking forward for the next 60 to 70 minutes. Two requests. First of all, if someone is still struggling to hear us, channel 1 is the one you have to dial in, right? Second one, please have your mobile phones ready, because we have some interaction planned. So it's just not going to be theory lesson, but we will do some interactivity as well. So please have your mobile phones ready, and we will ask you to dial in somewhere, but this will follow later. So starting off, yes, we got the slides here. So we know as the digital landscape continues to evolve, businesses like Metro, of course, have to change according to their customer behaviors and expectations, right? And the key to thriving this dynamic environment lies in harnessing and exploiting data. We all know it, so there is quite some power behind data. And how do we leverage it in the most effective and efficient way? And in order to drive, at the end, personalized, very targeted, real-time marketing strategies, right? So that's where we want to get to. And I'm personally very proud that we are able to do this joint journey with Metro together. I would say Metro is one of the pioneers, at least in the B2B wholesale area, you know, going into real-time personalization, starting with the MarTech Transformation. So we see other clients in the retail sector, in the insurance banking field, but I would say in the wholesale area for B2B, you guys are one of the first ones. So yeah, definitely some key learnings to take away, to share, and yeah, we look forward for that. So. Customer experience, sorry, I was too quick. So customer experience happens everywhere, right? So not tomorrow, not next week, also not in the next release. Customer experience happens real time. That's the most important thing. And that means basically delivering personalized and relevant experience based on the customer's preferences, behaviors, and contextual information. The question is now, where do we get this information? Where do we get these preferences, behaviors, and contextual information from? We need to unlock our data, right? So we need to find ways to unlock, collect, unify, activate the millions and trillions of data points that we basically collect day to day throughout our customer interactions. And therefore, it is quite simple. Right, so that is our credo. Your marketing is only as good as your experience can activate your business's customer data. So that's what we're going to hear about. One, from a very hands-on approach at Metro, and then also from a methodological approach from Inge. So before getting into the facts and before learning what it is, let's look into some numbers. So, you know, just to get us warmed up and, you know, to get started. So. And probably you all know this, so I don't have to go quite deep into it because this is a no-brainer, I would say. So we know that pretty much 65% of consumers refrain from brands that are not delivering personalized experiences, right? And 3/4, and everyone knows this effect of, you know, going into Instagram or getting some advertisement where you already ordered or where you already, I don't know, kind of made up your mind that you're not going to go for that purchase or for that product, and you still get targeted, right? Again and again and again, right? And 3/4 of our consumers actually agree to that, right? So that the inconsistency in experience is quite frustrating. Cookieless future, we started talking about this like 3-4 years ago. And some people say, hey, that trend has passed. Now we talk about ChatGPT and AI and stuff. But no, trend has not passed away, because still 82% of today's companies, especially in the DACH market, are still reliant on cookies. So that means there is no first data strategy in place. So that we need to act on. And then the last one, of course, expectation versus reality. So brands themselves perceive that their personalization capabilities are quite skyrocketing. Users have the exact opposite view, meaning, hey, I'm not getting a real good experience or a personalized experience. So basically, also here to act on. A no-brainer is, of course, the data privacy and the transparency behind it. There are regulatories. We need to act, right? So also the EU is basically giving us certain regulations where we need to act on, where we need to also, basically react on. So there are quite some call to actions why to engage in this topic, basically. So now it's time to get your phone out. I would like to ask you to dial into Tina. Can we move in? It's menti.com. So I hope you all saw the QR code. Otherwise, just go into menti.com and dial in the code 12 11 31 02. It shouldn't take too much broadband. Yeah. Can we quickly go back to the QR code? One swipe back. And then I guess we can go back. It's 12 11 31 02. So a quick hand sign. Is everyone in it? Okay, so we will wait a minute. All right, so I didn't even moderate it, so people are already typing in. That's good. I like it. So basically, first question: what does MarTech transformation mean to you? What kind of buzzwords? What kind of abbreviations? What kind of keywords do you relate to that? So Mentimeter is basically built to type in single words, so don't put in expectations in 3 sentences. That will not work, most probably. So just dial in words and let's see what comes out. So we see things as customer, we see data, we see personalized, customer centricity. Inge, anything that catches your mind? Anything we are definitely touching upon today?
Yeah, definitely. I actually like that customer is very much in
the center, yeah.
Yes, we will talk also about technology, but Marina will also tell about customer very much. Of course, it's about technology. Of course, it's also about data. That's, I think, very obvious. And we see customer centricity is also very much in the focus. So it's about customer and customer centricity.
And you know what's really cool? I see in the bottom, I see change management. Yes. Something many people don't have on their mind when thinking about these kind of initiatives, right? So really happy to see exactly that. Right, so looking at time, thanks for your engagement. We will get back to Menti in a couple of slides again. But Inge, now let's clarify. What does MarTech transformation mean to you?
Well, let's say as principal solution consultants, when we talk about transformation, of course, it's about the customer, but the foundation for this, especially if you talk about data, is of course technology by the end of the day. There are like 3 areas. First of all, customer data platform. So we will talk about this in a while, also more extensive. So some of you probably heard the word, some maybe not. Of course, it's about also MarTech, so classical marketing automation and everything around this. And last but not least, also, of course, it is about tech in some way. We will not talk about this today, if that was your expectation, but we will focus very much, let's say, the foundation for customer centricity and how to target customer in these two areas also with technology, but Marina also will talk very much about the business aspect of this, because as we will say again and again, it's by the end of the day about the customer, not about technology. It's the foundation.
Perfect, thank you. So, next one. Going back into Mentimeter, so you should be in it. So we just need the code, Tina. So one more swipe. So this time the code is 61998908. And let's talk about expectations. So what do you look forward to hear from us today? What are the key topics? We will try to incorporate them as dynamic as possible. We, of course, have prepared some slides, but of course, we can also keep it a little flexible. So let's fun. Love it. Who said that? Nice. Is that all? Fun? So 61998908, that's the code you need to dial in. And then, yes, so we talk about use cases. Yes, check, we will talk about it. Metro's approach, check, we will talk about it. Of course, strategy, best practices, definitely we will talk about it. I saw something like methodology and approaches. We will talk about methodologies that we have basically kind of invented also, right? And also then validated about time. So anything else, Marina, that catches your eyesight?
We will also for sure focus on the fails and on the learnings and things that I would not recommend to do, because we took some of our bruises with us, to be honest. We will touch upon the technology, and what I can truly promise to you that we will take you on a journey from the very first idea that starts with the first line in a Word document and with the vision to how we bring it to life. Because we also know that it might be painful, and the experience for the people who might need to drive it might be very tense, and I want to make sure that it's for sure that you take away that it's the journey worth taking.
Perfect, thank you. So then let's continue. Let's go back into the slide deck. Perfect. So, couple of words about IBM iX. So it's not a sales show here, so just to understand the context where we come from. So IBM iX is a digital agency within the IBM cosmos. I think IBM as a company is known from the first computers to, the first Lenovo computers to cashier systems, like back in the probably in our younger ages, we had many touch points with the IBM brand. Today, IBM is focusing on 3 key areas, so it's quite research-driven, so we are quite involved in R&D, topics such as quantum computing and all these kind of stuff. We are quite technology-driven, so quite in the cloud area of technology, and I would say the biggest part of IBM is consulting, and within the consulting area, we are basically focusing on customer journey transformation. So what does that exactly mean? Customer journey transformation, today you need to basically cover up end to end. So starting from awareness up to loyalty, from front end to the deepest back end, right? So that's basically our positioning, from strategy consulting, creative design to technical implementation to, of course, operations of the platform, with 1,200 employees in the DACH region and I think something around 17,000 employees within IBM iX globally. So just a quick introduction to us, and then I hand over to Marina, a quick introduction to Metro. Shouldn't also be an unfamiliar name.
I was about to ask, raise a hand who doesn't know Metro. I know this is a weird question. And typically what people associate with Metro is when we were small as kids and our parents would take us to Metro, and then we would buy big boxes of those gummy bears.
Oh yeah.
But apart from that, from the general association with Metro, we are a food wholesale company, and we have a very strong and deep purpose by enabling success of independent businesses. And this is very much rooted in the way how not only we advocate for customer value and how we can create more value, but also obviously with something that Metro is very much envied for, which is the magic card, which takes every transaction of every customer around the world and can track the data. But tracking data and using data for the benefit of the business of the customer, these are 2 different things. And together with the initiative with IBM iX, we're driving this forward to leverage the data even more. we have the leverage and we have the focus on to impact 16 million customers around the world. We have around 100,000 employees at Metro around the world, operating in 31 countries in total, and 661,000 stores. Now you can imagine, if you think about of 661 stores, and you track every transaction, you obviously need a very strong stack that supports all the whole business around the world. And this is exactly what METRO.digital is about. METRO.digital, we have the passion for food and we have the hunger for tech, so we really combine the wholesale and the technology part. And what we're doing here, we're supporting Metro around the world in consulting, in delivering technical solutions, in making sure that these solutions are properly delivered, maintained, and this goes from the checkout to any single email that needs to be delivered to the customers with the support of all the marketeers around the world. So quite a big work that needs to be done with 1,000 employees in total across multiple locations, including Romania and Vietnam, for example. What do we take also from our brand positioning, what Metro stands for? We'll know, and we already heard about that customers really want to be understood across all channels. So this is not really new to us. But how to truly make it happen, and what is actually inside of this very potentially simple statement? Our goal is we want for the customers to enjoy every single interaction in their context and in the moment of their need. The needs of our customers, if you think of a person who owns a hotel, a restaurant, or a kiosk, or a taxi driver, if you think of those entrepreneurs, they have all different needs. So also our business model has evolved over time, where we had to see how do we drive stronger delivery to our customers? How do we make sure that we understand really the offerings that we need to do for our franchisees who have a franchise concept with us running their independent stores? We really need to accommodate so many different needs, which also means we need to accommodate it with assortment, with communication, and with their preferred channel. How do we want to make it happen? How to actually reach this goal that we kind of foresee on the horizon? I will not shy away of telling you also the fails and the learnings on the way. And I really want to take you from the very beginning of our ambition to how we landed being here. So what we thought for ourselves, what we want to do, we want to launch a global marketing platform which enables our business, so it has a purpose. It has to enable our business to unify customer data across organization, across multiple sales lines, and also to why? Because we want to deliver real-time consistent experiences for our customers. It's quite a very strong statement and quite a very strong ambition, and we really need to cut it down what it actually means in practice. What does it actually mean? First, we need to focus on efficiency. We needed to make sure that we automate our campaign management and our ways we communicate with the customers. Why? Because we analyzed, and based on data, our marketeers were spending quite a significant number of hours of generating and creating a personalized campaign. Hence, if we free up the hands of our marketeers, we would be able to personalize more. It doesn't mean that we want to deliver more messages to our customers, but they need to be more focused and they need to be more relevant. Secondly, we want to make sure that we unify all the data. And this sounds like a really huge thing and huge luggage that we had to take on board to make sure how we would do it. And in the end, I talked about the magic card that Metro has, but we have to combine the transactional data of our customers together with the interaction data that they have on our digital and non-digital channels, and also with our master data of the customers. And today, for that, we had to break lots of silos in the mindset. And I remember in the Mentimeter, someone of you mentioned the mindset. It's also about the mindset. What are we trying to achieve? And you can sense from my talk so far that so far I never even touched the topic of technology. We will get there, but we see the technology as a very strong enabler to fulfill what? And then obviously, if you need to go to the board members, if you need to go to the management team, you need to tell, if we accomplish all of that, what is in for the business? And we built our business case based on 3 different areas, and this is really the takeaways that you can take and hold to them. What do we want to achieve? We calculated the impact if we retain more customers. We calculated the impact if we increase the basket due to our real-time communication, and we calculated the impact if we do more reactivation. And this is also in a proper sequence. Is it a promise? Of course, because we need to make sure that this is not something that we do just for the efficiency purposes, but we also need to make sure that we grow our business. And this is a vehicle to grow our business, also notwithstanding that we need to focus on the customer. These are the total 5 steps that we focus together with the team, how to get there. And we're about to go live in 6 weeks in Spain with the first use case, and I will guide you through the steps, and then we really can deep dive into those. First of all, very important, how to craft a common vision and how to communicate that vision to the people. Because I'm pretty sure if I ask all the 200 people in the room, what is MarTech for you, we will probably have 250 definitions of that. And if you ask the people in the company, what are we actually heading at? You need to make sure that you collect the people all around one common vision. Then, very important, and this also came from the Mentimeter, small research that we did, what are the use cases? And something that really relates to the business. How do you make those use cases that drive both the customer and the business benefit? Then, what is the relevant tech stack for this? And you can already sense we didn't start the conversation from the tech stack. We start the conversation from what is the business value we can do. Obviously, quite a hard part, we'll not shy away from that. We need to drive the implementation of that, and this means we also need to gather all the people around how we jointly make it happen. It will never be enough to have a very strong agency in place. Your outcome will always depend on how much you give in, and how much you give in onboarding the partner into your world. Because this takes time to understand the business model, to understand the technology part of it, and this is quite a very strong exercise to take. And last but not least, I will share with you how we plan to iterate and to grow, because we, and I think we have the slide somewhere, we think big, but we start small. I really will take you along my first 365 days in MarTech. And I remember that it all started with a big elephant in the room. When you're approached by people who are telling you you are currently in charge of a big department where you are in charge of different tech stack and technologies, and some of them seem to be outdated. So we need to renew something. This is typically how the conversation starts, and I see from some of the faces that it's resonating with some of you and some smiles on your faces. Yes, this is how it typically starts, because this is the easiest tangible thing that people can approach you with.
And if I can drop in something, Marina, also what happens, and probably many of you can relate to, is someone up there in the board or in the C-level here, that this and this company is implementing a CDP. This is the shit, at the moment. And there is a clear instruction: do it, right? And that's also typically where it comes from, right?
Exactly. So we need to do something around the data. We're not using this properly, so let's go for this technology.
Correct.
And I encourage all of you, and I know that sometimes it's really a painful exercise with one own, think about it. What are we actually trying to achieve? And what I want you to leave this room with, that MarTech and CRM transformation is not about implementing a new software. It's not about deprecating old solutions, and it's not about creating more productivity of the workforce. It's actually about people changing the mindset, changing the organization, and changing the processes or reinventing your processes. And all that, of course, settled around very strong collaboration between business and tech. I am a true believer that there is no separation that from today on we can take in talking business and tech. It is together, because we need to shape processes together, and it will not help you if your digital processes are reflecting something that is not covered in all the other touch points. And then the vision. And I remember this one rainy Sunday at home when I was thinking, what is the best way that I can gather people around the common vision? there is a very proven methodology that I took as a methodology that Amazon is using. Whenever a team is pitching a product, they think of a press release. How from 2 years from now on, I will communicate what we would have accomplished by the time. And then I started really to crack my brain to think, what would this transformation mean to different functions of the company? And I came up with a press release, and I must admit, I was so much hooked into the methodology that it ended up being 8 pages. And people were telling me, but Marina, a press release is never 8 pages. But the impact that it could have on the company, this was my response, is really huge. So I really need to force you to read it. But it's not about forcing to read. This became a very strong tool for me, first of all, to gather my own people in the team, to talk about how they see that. Because you need to start a conversation, and if you start a conversation around technology, you will lose it, because you cannot win with technology. You have to win the hearts and the heartbeat of the people with something that they envision to go together. I put it in a hidden blog article that I have on Medium that was never published, and I really took real data from Metro, how I envision the impact. Because the impact that I envision with this transformation, maybe in a couple of years from now, could be that based on marketing automation, based on the planned campaigns, we potentially could also one day plan the assortment accordingly and not vice versa. And this is what I mean by changing the processes. And I know, and I remember one of the words on the cloud was change management. It's transformation management. It's really taking everyone. I can recommend you. At that time, ChatGPT was not in place, so it was completely my brain work. But I also recommend you to do some brain work and also check it back with AI. But only you are as good as knowing your business and knowing your customers.
And you know, Marina, it's quite funny. I just realized it.
Yeah.
The date which is on there. This was not orchestrated. She just mentioned, when are we going live? In 3 weeks? What was it?
Mid of June.
Mid of June, right? So the July press release is actually quite accurate. I don't know how you looked into the glass bowl, but apparently you looked quite right.
I have also to say that this was quite ambitious in
we
general.
managed.
And it took, and we will talk about this, indeed, it took from the initial idea, it took 2 years from now to arrive to implementing something. Yes, we are a big company. We are operating with a non-centralized marketing model. So taking 21 entities, local entities, in the whole transformation process is quite some work to do, but I will get to this in a second. So what you need to fix, and you need to look into where do I stand in terms of my strategy, where do I stand in terms of people, and where do I stand in terms of technology. We worked with a company dedicated to that, because this is also a vehicle that can help you to understand that, for example, we were actually not so bad on the technology. We were actually lagging behind the benchmark when it comes to our strategy and people, and we were lagging there. So it means that in that moment we need to realize we need to fix the strategic part first before we can go into technology. And also quite an interesting insight and a takeaway. From the moment of the press release, the journey that it really takes until you go live, you can see it's almost 2 years. And on that whole journey, you need to tell people some success stories on the way. But by the time, you will probably not have gone live. So what do you do? So what we did, we built business prototypes with 3 different countries on the existing tech stack. So we never talked about what the future would be. Of course, we worked on our architectural approach together with IBM AX, but we had a story to tell, because our real business case was no longer based on just assumptions. We could analyze in our prototypes that we can really drive the business value. And you can see here the examples I brought to you. We increased the share of own brand sales in Romania. We increased the buying frequency in Spain, and we could convert new existing customers to use our digital services in France. These countries, together with Germany, also for us became the countries that are now part of the whole program, part of the whole initiative. And all that, we basically did all the automation work with hands, manually. So independent from a tech stack, Can you do real-time personalization? You can. Can you do it in a more efficient way? Yes. And then the question is obviously, what is the right technology stack to do so? So I encourage you to build small pieces of prototypes so that you always have a story to tell to the people in your organization, because from the moment you start until you bring something live, you need to make sure that people believe. And not only you alone believe, because only you know what you know, but you also need to make people believe what it really takes to bring the business results. And you need to build a solid foundation, which is sometimes perceived as a soft factor, but you need to fix your ways of working. You need to make sure that you have a common KPI framework, so no discussions on that. You need to make sure that you have a standardized processes, otherwise it will not scale. And last but not least, marketing resource planning was also one of the things that we were missing on the road that we needed to fix to understand how this will work for us. Now I remember one of the questions, or one of the interest areas on the Mentimeter that you raised was, so but how do you actually do it? So how do you make it happen? How do you do the use cases? And I must admit, our use cases were also centered around the business and around the customer. First of all, we analyzed our data, and based on data, we came with our data-driven life cycle for the customers. And this is something that was not in place before. Hadn't we had this initiative, we would probably have also done this work. But this became the foundation that, by the way, is also for the CDP today, is the foundation how we group and segment our customers. You can obviously understand that we have definitions behind each stage. And this is not something that we invented somewhere by very talented people. This is something that we did in a data-driven way, shared with our countries that are part of the co-creation team, and this is something that was fully accepted. This is the way to go. This is the way to avoid any subjective conversations or gut feelings. This has become the backbone how we center our use cases around the customer. In addition to that, we looked at the so-called business capabilities. What does the business actually need to have to be successful in doing marketing? They are very generic, and I think they might even apply to any company of this world. Maybe 10% of that is missing for some of you, maybe not. I know that we didn't take social media marketing because for us this was not in scope for the time being. Do we all need to do for our businesses customer segmentation? I would say check. Do we want to do event-based marketing, triggered marketing? For sure, yes. Do we all need to analyze the results of it, marketing analytics? For sure, yes. So we looked at what does the business have to do? And out of that, we derived the technical capabilities, which Ingo will share with you later. Last but not least, something that is completely given. Metro has a very complex business model and data model. Why? I will tell you, because we are B2B while we are talking to a person, which means I might have a pizzeria. Let's say we have a Pizzeria da Bruno, and Pizzeria da Bruno is led by one entrepreneur. This entrepreneur might have different team members who might also have a Metro card. So we want to talk to the pizzeria owner in a different way, potentially providing different services and assortment to the pizzeria owner than to his team. At the same time, you might have entrepreneurs who have different businesses with us. So you can also have within our data model a person who owns different businesses. And we always want to talk to the person in relation to the business of the person. This makes it very complex and actually created a kind of a funnel of the focus which CDP is relevant that can cover the complexity of our business. But we will get to this later.
And especially, maybe one point to add, especially we are talking about a consumer experience, right? So at the end of the day, those are consumer products which are purchased in a B2B context. So this whole B2C approach in the experience is also quite important, having in mind that we have a B2B model, right? So
exactly. And I'll give you just one data point. In Germany alone, our teams that built our own algorithm on analyzing assortment and providing product recommendations is analyzing 80,000 products. And I'm talking about Germany alone. So if you think about of the data that needs to be processed, that we need to deliver recommended assortment to a person in the relation to the business, this is really huge. And we needed to accommodate it in a way, and again, I hope you can sense it in a very customer-driven way. So data model was given. It was the absolute prerequisite to find a technology that can accommodate that. And obviously, last but not least, our top 17, our 17 use cases that are built and can be easily plotted into the lifecycle model that I had shared with you before. They're currently not ranked, so we didn't put all of them here. They are not ranked. But what we did afterwards, and Inge will share with you the way, how do we make sure which are the ones that are relevant, what are the biggest bets, and how do we make sure that we have a proper balance between the complexity of implementing and the business impact that it would achieve. So with that, handing over.
Clicker.
Okay, so let's get now more into methodology.
Super in time.
So basically you have seen use cases, and just as Marina has mentioned, we needed also to understand basically which use cases also to go first, because it was quite an extensive list, and basically to understand which use cases to go first, we did several steps. Let's start with the first one. So first of all, we discussed with Marina and her team that they need to dig a bit deeper into these use cases, because they already had the ideas, but we needed to bring it to a certain level. And here we use a methodology that we call ourselves battle cards. You might know something similar from sales area, because they are people also talking about battle cards. And what you see here is literally really a video of the Miro where we worked on it. And especially the part at the bottom, that's the battle cards. And you might see why it's cards. So we basically used cards, yes. We did it for two reasons. So the one was like to understand the priority of the use cases and the complexity, of course, also. And the second aspect why we did it also, as Marina mentioned, it was already kind of clear that there might be a lack of capabilities to be able to cover it. So we used also this as input to derive like more technical requirements also in the end, to make sure, is it something we can, or Metro can cover or not? So what are these battle cards about? So the first step is very obvious. So first of all, you get people together, ideally from the IT, from different departments. And by the way, it's also a very nice methodology to create this feeling of being considered. Because I think this was also at Metro something really important. Yes, there has been a lot of discussions, but you can imagine it's a huge organization. And for people to feel involved here is a key topic. And this is like a really nice format where people from different areas can get involved easy and speak on a level that is understandable to business, and business speaks on a level that is understandable to techies, because it's still a very straightforward format. And the first thing we discussed was like, what is the use case about? So you might smile maybe, but it's not always that obvious. So if we talk about onboarding, what is really the essence of onboarding? Why are we planning to do it? And find a common ground and essence here. And I'm not talking about like how many emails are we going to send. It's not about like getting to the essence. It's really about like, if we are talking about onboarding, what does it mean in the context of Metro? So you probably know, to be customer of Metro, you need a Metro card. So this is like a process. It's not just like I go there and buy something. And that's why also in Metro context, this onboarding, for example, is very essential, and also to understand why it's needed. And that brings me to the next topic that we discussed very much. So what value will it bring? So what benefit and impact for the clients of the Metro and for the Metro, because it's not the same thing usually. Also creating here common ground. Next step here on the battle card is going more into the details and discussing what are the touch points where you basically might have in this use case. So is it about email? Is it about SMS? Is it about something else? And also here we discussed also, I think, for a larger organization, important topic, who are the owners of these channels? And here I think Metro is like the most companies in this world. Usually you will find that the owner of one channel is one person and another channel is owned by another person. And usually these people don't talk too much to each other because they are doing on daily business their own job in their own tool and that's it. And basically if you talk about this transformation, it's also very much about also bringing these people together, not just on the level we are in the same meeting, but also on the level talking about, okay, if we are talking about this use case, are we somehow connected here or not? And also then it's also important to understand who is owning this whole thing. The next step, we talked a lot about data. You need to understand what data are involved in this use case. And we are not talking about attributes, so we are not that far. We are talking rather about level. For this use case, I probably would need online interactional data. So this is the level where we are here on. In parallel, so here we did not discuss the owners because obviously there are a lot of owners of different data sources across the whole Metro. But in parallel, we did another exercise, so to be precise, our data architect. And she collected, together with different teams, with architects, basically all the data sources that are around the customer data. And it's quite an extensive list, Marina knows this. And not just basically the names of the data sources, but also which information is in, who is the owner, what is the frequency of the data update, what is the expected data quality. So that we really had a very good understanding which kind of customer data is there, where is it, who owns it, and what can we expect from them and what we cannot expect. And here, basically, it also became already obvious that there's, let's say, quite some work to be done and that we will probably expect some, let's say, challenges. And that brings me to the next topic on this battle card. One important topic on the use cases is to discuss what difficulties do you expect when you think you want to bring this use case live. And this is quite essential. Because this will help you to understand also the complexity. Because the complexity derives not only from the technology, complexity might come also from the data, complexity might come also from organizational issues, whatever. And this is like, let's say, an open discussion that you lead here. And that brings me to the last point that we did here with Metro, like estimate the complexity. So we did it quite straightforward. It was on a scale from 1 to 5, same like for benefits. And once we did this exercise, we had a very clear understanding of the ratio for each use case between the benefit, and benefit is about money, right? And between the complexity. And complexity is about the costs, because the more the use case is complex, the longer you will need, the more the implementation, and I mean not just like the technical implementation, will cost. And this is like a very helpful tool in the end. Also to create a roadmap, and you see with these ratios very clearly, okay, what are the use cases where I have like maybe not the biggest benefit, but also quite a good, let's say, quite a low complexity, and this might be your quick wins. Because as Marina said, it's quite a long journey and people get impatient. People want to see something live. And this way, this methodology will help you basically to find out what to start first. So this is one aspect. I will talk about technical capabilities also about a bit later. But basically this was also used as an input to talk about this. The next step that where we walked on from this was to basically to take this conversation even further. Because here we had a clear understanding between like what the use cases might have as an impact and the complexity, but it was also a good idea, and that's what we did with a value tree, basically to understand how these goals that Marina introduced to us, these 3 key goals of this initiative, do map to the use cases. Because it's also something that will make your life easier. And I don't know if you have already seen value trees. Basically, it looks like a tree, that's why it's called like this. And you basically start with like one key goal and split it down. Like in our case, we had 3 main goals that Marina had. Let's take one example. One of these 3 goals is to increase the revenue. How can you increase the revenue? That's the next level in your tree, by increasing the number of customers. And how could you do this? That's the next level of thinking. You could increase the number of registrations, right? So this this cascading tree that we had in the end. And the beauty of it was that this 3rd level, like the registration, customer registration, this was already quite, let's say, operational. And this way, that's what we did then in the next step, we put it into a KPI framework, because basically each of these steps were some sort of activities in the use cases. And if you think about registration, so it's a clear action, you can measure it. And the KPI framework, by the end of the day, is about the ability to be able to measure the success of the use case. And again, it's very important because Marina and her team will be measured. And they made sure, together with us, that we have a KPI framework to make sure. We discussed also with the responsible for the dashboards within METRO, because they have like a quite nice process, I must say, for this, how use cases are created. And we discussed that this KPI framework will be used for this, and each use case will be displayed on a global level, plus you will see a view how each use case performs per one of the 22 markets. So after we have done these exercises, and it took quite a while because it was very intense, it took a lot of discussion. So as I said, the methodology itself is very straightforward. But of course, if it comes to people, people are more complicated than methodologies. So it will take you some time. It will take you some meetings. So it's not just like you will get once together, it's all clarified. So in reality, of course, it's a process. And by the end of these discussions, it's also become evident that some of the capabilities that Marina has been talking about are really the key to the success. That's the ones that you see now highlighted with this little symbol. Basically what was then also very clear for us then after this phase was we need to focus on especially customer segmentation, customer profiling, and event-based marketing in our dedicated project. And by the end, you could also call, if you name it as a solution, let's say marketing automation and CDP. And that brings me to the next topic. So we said, yes, it's very much about the business, but we needed a foundation. And to the next step, we assisted in METRO with the process of finding the right solutions. And here I would also like to discuss the methodology with you. But before doing so, I would like to talk very briefly about CDP, because it's still quite a new piece of technology, and there are like dozens of definitions on the market from Forrester, from Gartner, from CDP Institute, so I don't know how many there are on the market. And basically we try to explain it in the beginning very simple. So we say CDP is a customer data platform, and it's about 3 things. It's about context of the customer, so the data of the customer, who is the customer, where are they. It's about controlling this data, so being able to segment on it, being able to apply governance and privacy rules on it. And then last but not least, that in the end we don't just want to own the data, but we want to do something with it. The ability to activate this data, so to send it to channels. I call it actually data orchestration, because journey orchestration is basically still usually happening in the depending tools. So that's a very simple view on it. We could do it more complex, but I will skip it today. So, but just want to bring you a message across. Of course, the world is more complex than on a slide. But what I just want to take you with you by the end of the day, Customer Data Platform is very much about bringing your data together to be able to work with it and to use it in your channels. And you might say, but this is happening all over the place, and that's exactly the problem. It's happening all over the place, but not in one place, unfortunately, but in many places. And that's what I want you to take away with you. But as I said, if you want to go into complex discussions, that's how we could do it. And in the end, the big question is, of course, how to select the right one. Here again, there are very different classifications. that you might find. That's a very simple one. So basically, they are best-of-breed solutions that you might know, like Telium, Twilio, Segment, that really focus on the core. They are marketing cloud providers. So basically, these are marketing cloud providers that in the last years, the one that you know, like Adobe, Salesforce, Sitecore, Microsoft, and they either purchased in the last years a CDP or developed themselves one, right? The third one is marketing service providers. So basically, these are companies who are providing you the service plus the solution. And last but not least, cloud native providers. You might all know Azure, AWS, Google Cloud Platform. So basically, they don't provide a real CDP, but they provide you all the tools to build one. And if you basically look into technology on this first two columns especially, all of them are based on one of these three usually, using exactly the services. But you don't need to build one if you don't want, and if you don't want to spend the time. And it was, I think, quite clear that Metro is not planning to do this. So yeah, we basically focus on the first two columns by the end of the day. How did we do it? Yeah, we discussed already, we derived requirements based on use cases, based on capabilities. We had quite extensive Excel lists, so it's a quite time-consuming processes where we also rated upon these capabilities. So it was clear also which one are really necessary, which one are nice to have. And after this, it was still, of course, the question, to whom do we send all this that we did? So we needed a short list. And here again, a very straightforward process. So we did the pre-work already. That's the first circle that you see. The second step was around like basically getting a long list. And here one important topic that I want to raise with you. So because a lot of companies, they just look at the capabilities of a vendor. You can do it, and it's obviously essential because the vendor need to cover this. But we also look at two different dimensions, on usability and on the strategy. What does it mean? So strategy fit, it's about like who is the vendor? Like things like, which were essential to Metro. Do they basically have a presence in EMEA? So will be able to speak to someone who is really here in EMEA or in Germany, or do I always need to speak to someone in the US? Because most of these companies are based in the US, let's be honest. But also, is this company maybe too small for me because the procurement does not want it? And usability, I think, is quite understandable. So we knew that Metro basically has, in some countries, not a very high maturity in the teams, in the market teams, and the marketing teams. So it was clear that the tool must be in a way that it's usable, let's say, also for, let's say, someone who is not a super duper specialist, let's put it like this. Basically, to create long lists, we used then this information plus desk research from Gartner, from Forrester, and from IDC. This way, we built a long list. We had some inclusion and exclusion factors. So exclusion factor would be a factor like if a company, for example, is too small or does not provide something important which is needed, they would be immediately excluded. And in the last step, we really made a deep dive for the long list based on desk research from Forrester, Gartner. Are there any reports about things that really are necessary to Metro, especially in the B2B area, but are definitely not there? And we came up in the end for these two solutions with a list of 4, if I remember correctly. And Metro basically then did their RFP on their own, and the solution that has been selected was for CDP, Adobe Real-Time CDP, and for marketing automation, it's Adobe Journey Optimizer. So in the end, it was the marketing cloud provider approach that has been selected here. So do I need to hurry up because I don't see?
Yeah, we are a little bit on.
Okay. Okay, so obviously then we needed to go to the implementation part. And I think maybe I hand over here quickly to Marina.
We already mentioned that we needed to think big, and I hope you can understand like all the steps that we took to think big, but start small. Always going for the business impact. We realized the top 5 use cases out of the whole exercise, which will bring the highest business impact, but are also feasible to implement. We didn't start with the most complex one because this would have taken us longer. And remember, you need to show results on the way. So we went for being pragmatic and still bringing the business value. Quick win, time to market based on the prioritization, and also platform acceptance. So if you think of this whole transformation process, it's more just about implementing the technology. A lot of people in my team would also need to gain new skills based on the new tech stack. They need to give up the old skills, so the current ones that they have, and they need it also to accompany. And we really have collaborative teams that are part or working on this together. So part of this is a transformation of the people and their potential future roles. This is what we should not underestimate, because if we all ask ourselves in this room, do we want to change? We are most probably, because it's very human, we are most probably not liking to change so much.
So, and one of the questions that we discussed very much was then like which rollout approach to take. And here you could go different ways. So you could say you go use case by use case, so that would be a vertical approach. You could say I try to get everything in all countries at the same time. I think the disadvantage is quite obvious. And in the end, what we discussed and suggested, and that's what we are doing now, is hybrid approach. So technically we go horizontally. So once the use cases are there, we technically roll out them to all countries without any deviations that might be needed for them. In parallel, we do an extensive gap analysis for the use cases to make sure are there any gaps why this use case cannot be used as in the blueprint. And if not, basically country can start right away using the use case. They just need to do some localizations. Obviously, for example, if there is some content like in marketing automation, like for the use cases, they will need to translate it. But basically our idea is really we have a blueprint and we go with the blueprint in STAR and try to stay as much standardized as possible.
If I may add something, I think this is one of the key challenges actually companies are having. Am I going the centralized way or the decentralized way? And you can imagine many of these countries want to drive local-led innovation. They want to have local-led optimization because they believe, hey, my customer has this and this and this requirements and expectations that need to be fulfilled. And this is probably the toughest discussion, especially also with the markets, where mostly also the budget comes from, right? Because they, of course, want to have some sort of expectation fulfilled for the money they pay, right?
Yeah, and that's basically a good intro also. So yes, it's we will do some adjustments for some countries, especially if there are legal requirements. I think that's obvious. But for the countries where we find out there are changes necessary, of course, then we will take these adjustments and implement them. But what also important is that's what you see with this tier-based rollout. So basically we have this aspect too, because as AJ also mentioned, and Marina, there are some countries who are really driving the revenue, and we clustered the countries in 3 tiers. And basically, the tier with the largest countries with the biggest impact, that's also the tier that are, let's say, that can request changes on the blueprint. The others get the other 2 tiers get a different level of support, but basically they will not get, let's say, they desired requirements. So this is also to prevent basically, you know, this I wish something, because this is like something that is happening in these large organizations. Of course, it's a fight, so I think it won't be easy, I assume. But that's like let's say a compromise to move quickly, but still find a way that especially the large countries who bring the biggest revenue to METRO get their needs reflected. But everything we do, any deviations, they will go to the blueprint and will be available to everyone. I think that's also a key part. And how do we do it? Also one important thing maybe to consider. So basically we work with 3 teams. one team or squad called Product Squad. So it's a team which is very, let's say, consultant driven. So they are solution consultants, technical consultants, and business consultants who really talk about the use case, get more into the details, and design the solution for the use cases. The implementation squad, that's really the team that implements them, so especially the blueprint. And the rollout team is purely responsible for this rollout process that I described. So they write the standardized questionnaires for the gap analysis, they talk to the countries, they enable the countries, and they drive also the technical rollouts. And we are currently also discussing how we can automate this process also to make it even quicker, which I think is also very important. Because based on the technology you have taken, you might have the need to replicate the solution several times. And then finding a way how to do it automatically is a good idea.
And I think maybe one learning and something also to take away here is it's not an agency just doing the work and just implementing use cases and throwing it over the fence. That's not how it works, and that's also not what we want to do. It's really also about enabling, the client, or in this case, Metro, to operate the system, to understand, how these use cases are built, so that also optimizations on long term can be done like by yourself, right? So that's also quite important to, keep them also on track and have them embedded in those teams.
Yeah, thanks, AJ.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end. Please, so we will have some learnings, but there will be a little surprise towards the end. So let's hurry up with the learnings so we can get to the game.
Give it to me. Very simple. We split them also, but we see them together. We split them between business and tech, but there is actually no clear separation here. I'll start with one that is very important: program management, stakeholder management, the whole project setup. You asked us about fails. I think we didn't do it properly, the proper program setup from the very beginning. Why? Because we are operating on the open heart. I have quite a big team. We have existing 6 different digital products. We also have consultants and data analysts in place, and those people have their current jobs. How do you make sure with those people having really the hunger for the new, while operating on the open heart and delivering value to the countries, still already being part of the project? And yes, we took the learnings that for some of the people this was obviously too much. So we had to think for whom this is fine, who are the individuals, what is the level that they should contribute. And this is quite a very strong learning, because you can also fall back with not a proper project set up and without proper partner in place who is also helping you to set up all the ceremonies. In a big company like ours, you have so many different stakeholders, so very different people with different levels of information that you need to provide. There are some stakeholders with whom we are not talking about the battle cards. There are some people that we need to take in and really have to embark on the journey from the very beginning. I see some nodding faces. This is nice to see. So fix it from the very beginning. But even if you cannot fix it from the very beginning, be bold enough with yourself and be very self-assured. Change it on the way, because there is no meaning of continuing without the project setup where you gain so many pains, and you will not make your team members happy with that. Skills, team allocation, communication. What is the level of information that any person contributing or not contributing needs to know? What is the level of information that I need to provide within the tech unit of METRO.digital, within my stakeholders, towards the countries? And what is the, not even joking here, we really have a table where we had to define the meeting cadence and the people joining in, so that we make sure that people at any point in time have this information. And once you have that, repeat it 10 times. I can only tell you, repeat it 10 times to the people, the same information, because you might still have some people who might not be that deep involved in where you're involved. And for you, it's very obvious. For them, it is not. Because your purpose is so that they contribute and they make sure that things work. Target operating model, also very important. What is the new way we want to continue to work with this technology? We are also changing the ways of working in the future, because the way we are approaching this initiative is end-to-end from a customer perspective. Customer for us will be the only common denominator, because there is no other common denominator than the customer, considering our data model, the heterogeneous landscape in the countries, the tech stack that we need to accommodate. Customer can only be your common denominator, hence end-to-end thinking will become very important in adopting and bringing those use cases to life. And last but not least, speed will come from standard and blueprinting. You will have loads of discussions around, I feel like it's better like this, or we have always done like this. You need to take the data at hand. You need to have your people in place who will tell you and give you the right data so that you avoid the discussions of how many journey steps you or someone would like or wish to have in the journey. And probably everyone feels like being a marketeer, everyone feels like being a UX designer, everyone feels like contributing to the talk. Make sure that it is based on facts and make sure that it's standard. Otherwise, you will not have the speed if you allow those subjective discussions to happen.
Yeah, and let's come also to some technical learnings. I'm not sure how technical is the audience, but some of this I think is understandable basically to everyone. So I will start basically on the other end of the slide. So think end to end. So basically I already mentioned this. This is a kind of a project that involves different data sources and that impacts your whole architecture, or can impact and should impact quite extensive parts of your architecture. So think end to end, think not just like about the piece that you are currently doing, but start in the beginning also thinking, how do I connect with people who are doing dashboards? How do I connect with people who do the data analysis? Because there is a whole team of this on METRO. How we will interact with this, how does this project also technically impact them, and how can we make sure that everything that we need is, especially the data, is processed in the way that we also will require this in the process. One important learning, so while we did this data source overview I have been talking about, we kind of already understood we will have some obstacles. So this was clear, but also that's something that I want to bring out, and that's something that we are currently experiencing. Some of the data that we require is not in the quality how we require it, and at the moment there's quite some manual effort also required to clean it. So our data engineers basically have some work, and this is something that kind of stops us from being as quick as we could. So, but this is nothing special about METRO. I think this applies probably to most companies in this world. But you need to kind of consider this, because this might be something that will slow you down. Another topic that, again, potential for slowing down is the data privacy. So with METRO we have been lucky that the processes around consent are quite clear. There's unfortunately no central consent management tools, but the processes that are in place are very clean and we can build upon them. But there is, I think, an initiative on top to change also to a more centralized way. But at the moment we need to work with what is there and to do, let's say, some workarounds about it, but also to consider it, because when you centralize the data for usage, it means also you need to find all of your policies in this central place, but they are not managed there. That's what I want to mention. So if you introduce a CDP is not the place where you manage the consent. CDP is just the place where the consent will be, hopefully, from one of the system, or maybe just one system. Yeah? And last thing is quite technical, but still important. So this is something that our team currently is excessively also discussing with the METRO technical team, how deployment pipelines look like, how quality assurance processes look like, because especially CDP, but also marketing automation work differently than, let's say, a CMS project, where a lot of things are standardized, where deployment pipelines are included in the project, and also quality assurance works slightly different. I can just advise to find good approaches, how to run it. Otherwise, you might find yourself in a place, which will be not really good.
Perfect. Thank you, Inge. So the last experience is the best experience. So I mentioned it already. We will close it with a game, and there are also some surprises which we have prepared in the back. So please, again, scan the code. This is not Menti anymore. This is Kahoot. So it's going to be 5 questions, 10 minutes, and of course, the lesser the emptier the room is, the higher the chances, of course, of winning. So there's also a benefit behind that. So everyone scanned in already, then we can already swipe over. Then, take some time. I'm just looking for the code. Yeah, so either you scan the QR code or dial in kahoot.it. Put in your code 4199830, come up with some fancy name, whatever you like. And let's see how many people are actually dialing in. So we already have a couple of people, Juliane, Flint, Alex, Nice, or Nice, Negin. Fancy name, thank you. So let's give it a couple of seconds. Usually also see how many people dialed in. I see there, 42. So should be roughly it. So I don't see any movement. So Tina, I would say looking at time, let's dig right into questions. How it works. You will see colors on your display. So the question will be on the screen, and you will just see colors on your screen. So just go for the right answer. 5 questions in total. First one: the main goal of Metro's initiative is to: is it improve current tech stack? Is it achieve business goals? Do epic shit? Or is it optimize current organization setup? So which one is it? Just tap the right color, whatever it is. And I think we have a couple of seconds left, yeah. And the right answer is achieve business goals. 24 people got it correct. Let's look at the ranking. Who is leading? Anton is leading, David and FFJ. Then let's move over to the next question. The format that has been used to detail out use cases was called smart cards, use case cards, battle cards, or discussion cards. Which one is it? Red, yellow, blue, or green? 10 seconds left. The quicker you are, the more points you get, by the way. So don't think too much. So the right answer is, of course, battle cards. 28 people got it right. Is Anton still leading? No, Julian took over. Julian is on the first place, Anton and Juliane on the third place. Move over to the next one. To discuss the business value, we are using the value tree, business cases, KPI framework, or KPI tree. 10 seconds left. What is it? Is it the business case? Is it the KPI tree? Is it the framework? Maybe the value tree? Who's got it right? 2, 1, and 18 people got it right. Wow. We talked a lot about battle cards. Anton took up. Elena came up, and David is on third place. Is it the last one? No, the fourth one. One of the biggest organizational challenges is program and stakeholder management, sufficient beer supply, finding developers, spending too much time in meetings. I think at the OMR, beer supply was an issue yesterday. But let's see what it is in the Metro context. So, yes, the right one is program and stakeholder management. Almost everyone got it right. Spending too much time in meetings is a general issue, I would say. So, it's not a CDP-related one. Elena is on the first place, Anton and Nazrin. And last question, the approach that Metro took to roll out. Is it diagonal, horizontal, hybrid combined, or vertical? I'm really curious how a diagonal rollout could look like. Might be interesting. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, time up, and mostly everyone got it right. Yes, it's hybrid combined, and let's see who's got the winning 3 positions. Third place, runner-up, David. Who's David? Perfect, congrats. Eddie, second. We didn't see him. Perfect, nice. And first place goes to Anton. Nice. Perfect. Very good. Please stay back. We have something for you. And we need your clothes sizes, so that's why we can't hand it over to you. But yeah, we will hand it over. Looking at time, Marina, Inge, thanks a lot today for joining us. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you have questions, please, we will stay back a little bit so we can discuss. Otherwise, please feel free to visit us on our booth. It's A4 H03. It's right next to Spotify. So please feel free to come by and let's discuss. Thanks a lot for coming by.